Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Clean Machine Live. My name is Geoff Palmer. I'm the CEO and founder of Clean Machine. Before we get started, as always, we'll put up the FDA regulations. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Okay, so I've been having some wonderful conversations and some heated debate with friends of mine in the vegan movement, including many of the plant-based doctors out there. And some have had really amazing conversations with, including Dr. Tim Radek, Dr. Frank Sabatino, who wrote the nice book right behind me, Weightless, and Dr. Milton Mills, as well as Dr. Michael Clapper, and Dr. Joel Furman. So in my discussions with Joel, he's very concerned about dementia, as so is Dr. Michael Clapper, who are up in the years, and I'm getting up there too at 61, but the concerns are about DHA and brain health, and specifically dementia and the potential for Alzheimer's disease or brain shrinkage. So that's my topic. So I did a deep dive into DHA and dementia and brain shrinkage. And I'd like to talk to you about the findings that I've had, because I found them fascinating, and I hope you will too. And I hope we can see some of the direct and indirect influences to dementia and how we can do things to prevent that, or to ensure we don't get brain shrinkage and or dementia, not ensure, but put us at a higher chance of less dementia and brain shrinkage. Okay, so in my research digging, the DHA seems to be mostly, not entirely, but mostly a function of structure. Let's go ahead and put what that looks like on the screen. So here's a picture of what, let me see, let me take down the caption. There we go. Okay. All right. So this is the main place where DHA is. You can see the omega-3 fats, which are mainly DHA, making up the membranes of our brain, mostly in the cortex area of our brain. So it's structural. It allows things to pass into our brain, called the blood-brain barrier, and allows waste products to get out through these channels. So we can see that mostly DHA is structural. As a matter of fact, when they did research on the different fatty acids in the brain, they found that, and I'm going to put this up on there, they found that DHA, which is, you can see the 22,6N3, N3 means omega-3, so 22,6 is in the dotted line. That's the omega-3 in the brain as we go from 0 to 4 years of age. But you look at the other line, that's 24N6. That is an omega-6. N6 stands for omega-6. That's arachidonic acid. So there's actually more arachidonic acid in our brain than DHA. Now I find this kind of interesting and funny, but not funny, because there's so much emphasis on, oh, you need DHA for your brain, you need DHA for your brain, when actually there's actually more arachidonic acid being used by our brain and in our brain than even omega-3 DHA. So why all this focus on the DHA part and not the arachidonic acid part? Okay, some will say, oh, but we're getting plenty of omega-6 in our diet. That's why we shouldn't be concerned about it, and less omega-3. So this research goes on to say that the omega-3, the arachidonic acid levels change as we age. They go up and then they slowly trail off as we get older. But the DHA levels, once we get to a mature brain, once our brain is fully mature, don't change throughout our entire life. Now, that would make more sense if the DHA in our brain is mostly structural. Means it's the building blocks, like cement blocks of a house. You may change a roof, you may need to fix the plumbing, stuff like that. But the base foundation of the house doesn't change unless it's hit by a hurricane. So, and that's where we see DHA can be helpful, is if you have actually brain damage, where there's damage to this structure of the brain. Now that would make sense. When we look at the amount needed or required by the brain of DHA, it's less than 4 milligrams per day. 4. So why are we taking 250 to 1,000 milligrams of DHA a day when we need 4 milligrams? Sales, marketing, fish oil industry. They're making you believe, oh, there's a lot of DHA in our brain, so it's important to be there. No, it's important to use it to build the brain for the structure. But once it's there, the amount of DHA in our brain pretty much stays the same for our entire life. Okay, so then why are we finding health benefits to DHA in the brain when we do DHA studies? 2 things. One, are we starting with people that are insufficient in total omega-3s? Because let's take a look at this. All right. We know that we give somebody who's insufficient in omega-3s, DHA, and some of the brain mechanisms can improve. Now, we also know that part of the reason why this is happening is because after the body takes DHA and brings it to the liver, combines it with LPC, lysophosphatidyl-choline, that actually can cross the blood-brain barrier and get into the brain. So let's take a look at what that looks like right here. There we go. Okay, so over on the left-hand corner, you can see you start out with DHA, then it goes to the liver where LPC is attached to it. That's the lysophosphatidyl-choline. This helps it attach to the connector, the transport called MFSD2A. And this transports it across our brain, across the endothelial layer, into our brains where it can be used by our brains. So this is why ALA does not convert to DHA in the blood. Why would it do that? It's not necessary. It needs to go straight to the liver to be attached to LPC, so it can be LPC DHA, and then it can enter into the liver. So this form of LPC DHA, once it attaches to the transport, the MFSD2A, then it goes into the brain. And when it does that, we see an increase in the brain of something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. So BDNF is really what's doing a lot of the really good stuff. So let's see what happens when we actually give the brain BDNF. All right, so they did a study saying, okay, the form that you take of DHA in a supplement is called triglyceride form, or TAG for short. Triglycerols. All right. So TAG DHA on this scale is the black dots. You see in the corner? That means if you give people TAG or triglyceride DHA, like from fish or from algae, it does nothing for the brain. It has to be taken to the liver and formed into LPC DHA, which are the red dots way at the top there. And you can see that there is a dramatic increase in BDNF. That's the stuff that heals, repairs, and stimulates growth of nerve factors in the brain. All right, so this is the stuff that DHA accelerates BDNF, which then heals and repairs the brain. So when you get these positive DHA studies, what you're really seeing is the liver attaching LPC and then it crossing the blood-brain barrier and affecting brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Okay, that's where the benefits come from, other than DHA just being structural. As you can see in this graph, this is just structural. This is DHA making up the building blocks of our brain. That's why there's so much in our brain, but it doesn't mean we need to replenish it. Remember, our daily requirements for our brain is less than 4 milligrams. So it's tiny. So basically, just healing and repairing this membrane is all we're doing. Is we're replacing some of the fats that may have gotten damaged in the process, and we're basically just using 3 or 4 milligrams to replace and repair these. Now, that repair is important, and it requires methylation. Okay, so I know this is getting sciencey, but what else increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor? ALA, our friends from the plant kingdom. That's right. The omega-6, the only essential omega-3, excuse me, ALA, made from plants. Animals don't make it, only comes from plants. ALA is a BDNF upregulator too. So you can give somebody ALA and it will also increase BDNF and it will also get you those brain benefits. So the use of just DHA in these supplement studies are not comparing it to ALA. They're just saying, okay, if you're insufficient and you give somebody DHA, it will improve the brain, probably through the BDNF factor as a benefit. Yes, but so will ALA. As you can see, ALA increases BDNF just like DHA does. So ALA can enter directly into the brain, can actually convert in the brain to DHA, so as a direct pathway to the brain too, as well as being converted to LPC form of DHA in the liver. So this is how it goes. You start with dietary DHA. That's the preformed DHA that you would get from eating animals or consuming algae oil or fish oil. Then it has to be transported to the liver where it is then converted to LPC DHA. This is the form that crosses the blood-brain barrier. And this is what upregulates BDNF in the brain. Instead of this whole process, ALA is just shuttled directly to the liver and converted into LPC DHA. Actually, about 30 times more ALA is converted in tissues, including the brain, the liver, and even fat tissues, than in the bloodstream. That's why these bloodstream tests are totally inaccurate and worthless for those only consuming ALA or SDA forms and then having the liver do all the conversion. Because remember, the omega-3 blood test that Dr. Furman keeps saying, oh, this omega-3 blood test shows that vegans are too low. Well, of course it does, because that's not where the ALA is being converted. It's being converted in the liver, directly in the brain, and in the tissues 30 to 47 times more than it does happen in the bloodstream. So the omega-3 blood test is worthless for vegans who are not consuming preformed DHA. Now, I'm 61. Of course, I'm concerned about my brain. I don't want dementia. I don't want senility. And at 61, that's a major concern for me. But I know these physiological pathways, and I know my body is actually very efficient at that because that's our physiology. That's how the pathway works. That's why it works for every single other herbivore animal on the planet. They use the exact same pathway, the exact same enzymes. It's no different. It's preserved in all species. Okay, so once this LPC DHA gets to the brain, this is where it can do all of its magic tricks. Now, I found an interesting study, and let's go ahead and start diving into the research now. That homocysteine could actually prevent DHA from being effective. So let's take a look at why that is. All right. So homocysteine, to detoxify the body of homocysteine, our body requires vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and folate. Okay. So in vegetarians, the B6 status amongst vegetarians is very good. All right, so their findings were the vegetarian diet does not pose a risk for vitamin B6. Actually, I did a video on this showing that even when vegans had lower intake of vitamin B6, their blood levels were actually higher in B6. And the assumption is because we're not using as much, because we don't need as much to convert the harder to metabolize nutrients coming from animal foods. So we actually don't even require as much as vegans or vegetarians than those eating a high animal-based diet. Okay, so it's not the B6. All right, and this study, 2021 study, says vegans actually have the highest levels of folate. So it's not the folate either. So it's not B6 and it's not folate. Well, that leads us to the obvious answer, vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is one of the key B vitamins that is required to reduce and detoxify homocysteine out of the system. So when you look at vitamin B12 and homocysteine status in vegetarians and vegans, we have a problem. Okay, more than 66% of vegans, 52% of vegetarians, and 45% of omnivores. So still pretty prevalent, but definitely higher homocysteine levels in vegans that are above the normal value. That normal value is about 6 to 12 millimoles per liter. So anything above 12, that's considered a high homocysteine level. And it means generally that we're not getting enough vitamin B12 intake. But not just for vegans. An estimated 70% of people over 70 have raised homocysteine levels. Okay, so this means everyone, not just vegans or vegetarians, have this issue of not getting sufficient B6, folate, and vitamin B12 in to detoxify the homocysteine, which causes the homocysteine levels to go up. Okay, but you're saying, all right, all this homocysteine, what does it have to do with the brain? What does it have to do with DHA levels? That's where this study comes in. All right, so homocysteine status, the treatment of omega-3 fatty acids in cognition. This is a randomized controlled trial on RCT with people with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. It's called the OMEGAD study, AD meaning Alzheimer's disease. So it's looking at omega-3 and what makes omega-3 beneficial for those who are having severe brain function problems. Okay, so this is a really interesting thing that comes out of this study. The effect of omega-3 fatty acid supplementation on these disease states, cognitive decline, mental and cognitive issues, appears to be influenced by baseline homocysteine levels, suggesting that adequate B vitamin status is required to obtain the beneficial effects of omega-3 fatty acid on cognition. So by having high homocysteine, even if you're taking DHA in its preformed state, it does not have an effect, a beneficial effect. So it's not the DHA that is the big problem, the big driver here. It's not the rate limiting factor of effectiveness. It's the homocysteine levels. Homocysteine can damage the brain. All right, so let's take a look at this next study. And this one says homocysteine lowering by B vitamins slows the rate of accelerated brain atrophy, that is brain shrinkage, and mild cognition. So this is a randomized controlled trial too as well. Now this is even more profound what they found. They found that the treatment was related to baseline homocysteine. The rate of atrophy, shrinking of the brain, with homocysteines above 12, in this case 13 millimoles, was 53% lower in the active treatment group. Those getting B vitamins to lower their homocysteine found that the rate of atrophy was 53% lower. Let's actually show you what that looks like on the screen. This is from that study. You can see the dark area in the brain where the brain is not there. 50% more brain shrinkage than those that were getting the vitamin Bs. So the brain shrinkage is really more about the vitamin Bs. It's not about the DHA at all. And let's actually dive deeper into that, because what you're going to see is even more pronounced. Let me take this picture down. Okay, and then go into, here we go. This is what this study found. Oh, that's the one I just showed. And here we go. Okay, so those participants with raised homocysteine levels, meaning they didn't have enough B vitamins to bring that homocysteine level down, given a high dose of B vitamins, so that's B6, B12, and folic acid, those are the three needed to detoxify homocysteine, had a 53% less brain shrinkage in 1 year. Just in 1 year, it was 53%. Just by adding the B vitamins in there, compared to those given a placebo. So it wasn't the DHA at all. It was just the B vitamins. And we know that vegans can tend to not take either sufficient vitamin B12, take it regularly enough, or even take it at all, as in the case of the anecdotal cases that Dr. Joel Fuhrman, some of those people that he was quoting, some of his heroes in there, were refusing to take vitamin B12 at all. And definitely we can see 53% less brain shrinkage in 1 year. So it's the B vitamins really that we should be focusing on, not the DHA, which is mainly just structural and doesn't even change. And the amount needed for the brain for its overall usage is less than 4 milligrams. So what's amazing with the B vitamin treatment, they had virtually no cognitive decline. In addition, there was 9 times less shrinkage in the areas of the brain associated with Alzheimer's disease. 9 times less shrinkage just by taking your B vitamins. Now, again, the issue does not seem to be on a normal diet for vegans, vegetarians, or even carnivores, even not carnivores, there's no such thing, not in humans, omnivores rather. They don't seem to have issues with the vitamin B6, maybe a little bit with people who are real heavy and meat, but it's the B12. All right, so let's look at the next study, because it's even more surprising. This next study is really going to explain why this is the case. Okay, so homocysteine is detoxified by methylation, and vitamin B6, B12, and folate help the body attach that methyl molecule, methylize the homocysteine so it can be detoxified. So this study, brain atrophy in cognitively impaired elderly, the importance of long-chain fatty acids, omega-3s, and B vitamin status in a controlled trial, an RCT. Okay, so those given omega-3 with low homocysteine, in other words, their bodies were able to methylate. See, when you're using B vitamins to methylate the homocysteine, that means you don't have that body's ability to use B vitamins to methylate DHA. All right, so now we're starting to see a clear picture. The high homocysteine starts wiping out our body's ability to grab methyl molecules called methylation and attach it. Let's see what that looks like here. Methylation. Okay, let me take down the caption. Okay, so this is the importance. When you have the first graph here, you have a clinical improvement of omega-3 if the baseline homocysteine levels are below 12, meaning lower or normal homocysteine levels. If they go above 12, as you can see in the next group in the center, omega-3 actually worsened the outcomes for Alzheimer's disease. And when you have very high homocysteine, omega-3 has no effect at all for dementia or Alzheimer's disease. None, zero effect. So once again, the thing that's controlling the effectiveness of the omega-3 at all is whether you have a baseline good enough B vitamin status. Now, this is pretty amazing because we are looking at now a very clear reason why vegans and vegetarians have a slight propensity, just a few percent higher risk for dementia than omnivores, is because of the B vitamins, not because of the DHA or the omega-3s. Omega-3s function as anti-inflammatories. If you've got homocysteine damaging the brain, that can help with the inflammatory part of it. But once that homocysteine is high enough and you can't methylate, then the body can't replace that DHA. Let's actually take a look at what that looks like. Did I put it up here? Shoot. Okay, so this is as good as it gets. I think I lost the other image that actually shows the methylation process. But methylation, the omega-3s, in order to be attached and positioned in our membranes, requires methylation. So if you don't have enough B12 to be able to do this methylation process, because homocysteine is grabbing all your body is using all this B12 to methylate the homocysteine to get it out of the system, then your body doesn't have enough B12 to methylate the omega-3 DHA to put it back in the brain. And this is where you can find negative results. So the high homocysteine levels are the problem. The key answer is the B vitamins. Once you have enough B vitamins, you have enough B vitamins to methylate the homocysteine and get that level down so it doesn't damage the brain. And you have enough B vitamins to methylate the omega-3 DHA so it can be placed properly in the structure and function of the brain. So it's the B vitamins that are pivotal and key here, not the DHA itself. The DHA can reduce some inflammation, but so can ALA in the brain. The brain can, the DHA can improve BDNF, which adds to brain growth and brain repair. So does ALA. So its total omega-3 status is probably overall more important than the DHA status. And even more important than all that may be the fact of the vitamin B status. Because if you don't have proper vitamin B status, they show DHA had zero, none, nilch, no effect on brain function for those with dementia. None. You can see the last bar graph there. Zero effect, no effect whatsoever of DHA in the brain if you did not have low enough homocysteine or sufficient amounts of vitamin B12 to make that methylation process work. So it's a two-part thing. You need, the body can produce its own DHA from ALA, the proper form of DHA, which is called LPC DHA, which is created in the liver. That's why ALA does not convert in the bloodstream. It is taken to the liver to form LPC DHA, where it can then be methylated and attached to the MSD transport and go into the brain and support the brain for its functions. Okay, so now that we see DHA is not the issue here, it is homocysteine, and more specifically, the proper B vitamins, B6, folate, and B12, sufficient enough to lower homocysteine levels so it doesn't damage the brain, and so that you have extra vitamin B12 and B6 to methylate the DHA so it can be properly placed in the brain for its brain structure in the phospholipids. So there is the key issues. I will be speaking about this at the Spotlight on Health. That is coming up. Let me go ahead and put that up on the screen. That is with Dr. Michael Hawley of T. Colin Campbell Institute on Wednesday, November 6th. I'll be doing a complete breakdown of the research of why ALA is sufficient to supply the brain all of its needs for DHA. You can join us. Dr. Milton Mills has graciously invited me to come on the podcast with him to talk about this. But before we just end there, I want to show one other major cause of dementia in the brain. So actually, when you look at things besides alcohol and smoking, just don't do that. That's bad for the brain, and that can lead to dementia. The number one contributor that they saw was not DHA or omega-3s. It was exercise. Exercise can prevent dementia and greatly reduce the risk for dementia. So let's go ahead and take a look at the research there. All right, so this study right here shows that the combined effect of physical activity and fruit and vegetable intake and decreasing cognitive decline in Taiwanese adults. Now, this was a nice size study. It was 4,400 people in the study, 53 years old, and it was called a longitudinal study. So they followed the people for 16 years before publishing the data. And what they found with those with the highest fruit and vegetable intake, the more plants you ate, the better it was for your brain, basically. Cognitive decline was decreased 40%. But more even impressive was when you combined high fruits and vegetables with exercise, you got a 63% reduction in cognitive decline and risk for dementia. 63%. Now, most of the studies that show DHA improvements are 10, 12%. We're talking 63% with exercise and high intakes of fruits and vegetables, as you saw the studies before. So, all right, so DHA is really not that big a deal then. Well, is it potentially harmful? Okay, so before we start there, I just want to do the summary on the methylation process. This is directly from the study. In other words, you cannot build brain cells without both sufficient omega-3 DHA, the building blocks, that's the structure of the brain, and sufficient B vitamins to ensure the process of methylation, which binds the DHA into the membrane structure, and that's what's working effectively. And because high homocysteines require a lot of B12 to detoxify, you can lower your B12 status even if you're doing sufficient intake if you have high homocysteine levels. So upping your B12 even more might be necessary to bring those homocysteine levels down and have enough to ensure the methylation process to get DHA rebound structurally into the brain. Okay, so with all that said, and that showing that DHA has repeatedly shown in multiple studies to increase atrial fibrillation. All right, this study below actually shows a 69% increased risk of AFib. Atrial fibrillation is an irregular heartbeat. Okay, so some say, all right, but that was in high dosages. No, this study actually showed even at low doses of only 380 milligrams, had a 12% increase risk for atrial fibrillation. So it's clear DHA at any level, by putting it in the bloodstream where it doesn't belong, where the body doesn't want it. Remember, if you consume ALA, the body won't convert ALA in the bloodstream to DHA, which is why, because it could then contact the heart and cause atrial fibrillation. So the body does not want DHA in the bloodstream. So this is really important, why the body prefers ALA, so it can keep the DHA out of the bloodstream so it doesn't cause atrial fibrillation, take it to the liver, where only in the liver is it converted to LPC DHA, which then can be absorbed and utilized by the brain. So that's the proper pathway, and that's exactly the pathway that you get when you consume ALA or SDA in the case of ahi flower. But when you put DHA in its preformed state from algae or fish or animal products into the bloodstream, you are increasing your risk for atrial fibrillation. And you're going to say, all right, Geoff, that's okay, but that's your heart. What's that got to do with the brain shrinkage or dementia or Alzheimer's disease? What does AFib have to do with that? All right. So a series of meta-analysis. Now, a meta-analysis is not just a single study. It's a review of a lot of different studies. And in this case, it was a review of 5 different studies that showed a 2 times increased risk for dementia with those with atrial fibrillation. Why is that? Okay, when you have a regular heartbeat, your body gets into a rhythm of pushing blood into the brain. That's fine. The blood vessels are set up to take that. But when you have an irregular heartbeat and your heart doesn't beat properly for one, it pushes harder for the next one to try to make up for the blood flow. So it pushes even harder. So you get this soft, soft, hard, soft, soft, hard, hard, soft, soft. That's the irregular atrial fibrillation beat. And when it pushes the hard, it pushes blood into the blood vessels, and the microcapillaries in the blood vessels in the brain can burst and hemorrhage. And this is where we have problems with the brain. So if that wasn't scary enough, look at this data. Another meta-analysis, there are 3 major meta-analyses that were released on atrial fibrillation in significantly increasing dementia and cognitive impairment. So 1.4 to 2.2 fold increase. That's 140 to 220% increased risk for dementia when you have AFib. All right, so AFib can increase your heart attack risk by 63%. That alone should be reason enough to not take supplemental DHA, because we know it increases your risk for AFib. AFib then can increase your risk for heart attack by 63%, and it increases your risk for dementia up to 220%, bursting blood vessels in your brain because of AFib that can be caused by taking DHA supplementation. Bad for your heart, bad for your brain, causing. So DHA may be actually indirectly causing dementia and cognitive impairment, not helping it. This is why it's important to let the body do its own pathway, to take ALA, take it to the liver, make it into the form of LPC DHA, so it does not and cannot cause atrial fibrillation, take it directly to the brain and allow it to do it. That's the pathway that our body is designed to. And by sticking DHA into the bloodstream, you disrupt that endogenous regulatory system, beautiful, eloquent system that our body has designed to get our omega-3s from plants, just like our body intended to. So really, really clear here that we should be listening to our bodies. We should take the ALA and SDA. Now, if you want to know why SDA is so important, there are people with genetic makeup differences. They're called ApoE4 or SNPs, or they're FADS2 genes. When you have a set of genes that could actually make it harder for you to convert ALA, that's why I brought Ahiflower to market, so that your body can bypass that step just enough not to convert to DHA in the bloodstream, but to convert more efficiently to DHA in the liver, where it's safe and out of the bloodstream, so it doesn't cause atrial fibrillation, which could lead to heart attacks or worse, greatly, significantly worsening your risk for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. I know I covered a lot of science. If you have questions, please leave them down in the comments section. This is a passion of mine. I've been digging through this research forever. It's really, really getting clear of why the body has a very specific pathway that it chooses to convert ALA or SDA to DHA only in the bloodstream. It rapidly and readily converts to EPA, which is great for the cardiovascular system, lowers cholesterol, improves cardiovascular health, improves heart health. Great, you want EPA in there, but you can get all that you need from ALA. That has never been in question. All the studies show that ALA increases EPA in the bloodstream. There's never been a question about it. But what we saw in the blood tests were that ALA didn't convert to DHA. Now we know why the body does not want to convert ALA to DHA in the bloodstream, because it can lead to atrial fibrillation, which can lead to brain damage and brain destruction and dementia and stuff. This is why the body does not want preformed DHA in its bloodstream. It's really apparent to me from the research that I've been digging through for the last 30 years. I hope it is to you, because I don't want to see, look, I haven't taken any preformed DHA in over 40 years. And, obviously I wouldn't be here right now if my brain wasn't getting enough DHA for 40 years. My brain wouldn't even be functional. So it's clear our body has that pathway, just like every other animal on the planet does. Now, I take that back. True carnivore animals do not convert ALA to DHA. They actually start with EPA because that's what's in their food supply. They're eating animals directly, and that is the base of their diet. So foundationally, all they require is EPA, DPA, and DHA. Humans actually use ALA, SDA, ETA, the first three, and they convert to the longer chain fatty acids, EPA and DHA sufficiently. Now we know the process, and now we know the reason why the omega-3 blood test is completely inaccurate for those who are not consuming preformed sources of EPA and DHA. Now you know. Please share and give this a thumbs up. I want to get this information out to more people, because so many people, even vegans, are taking preformed DHA and algae thinking they're doing good for themselves when they could be creating atrial fibrillation and could be indirectly damaging and causing dementia, not preventing it. So let's get past this fear that we have to be like animal eaters. We don't. There's a good reason our body does not want to do what animal eaters do, which is have that preformed source of EPA and DHA. Not only do we not need it, it could be potentially damaging and harmful to both our heart and our brain function. And now we have the research that shows all of that. Please give it a thumbs up. Leave your questions in there. This is a dramatic shift in our understanding of omega-3s. It flies in the face. And yes, there's a lot of fish oil industry and even algae oil folks that are not going to like this data sharing. And I don't care, because it's important to me to talk about what the real pathways of human health are and the ways to contribute to that in a way that is not damaging and not harmful to human health. That's why I share this data, and that's why I produced ahi flour, so that we'd have the best alternative to fish oil, to the animal products out there that could supply all of our omega-3 needs, even for those that have ApoE4 or other genetic variants in their system. Okay. Thank you for watching. Please share if you can, or if you feel so inclined, because this is really, really important data, and it's a 180 turn on the assumptions that are being held out there, even by doctors, teachers, professors, a lot of people out there. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back with the latest information, great science research, and some cool guests coming up too as well. And some great new product launches that I'm really excited to launch into, because they are amazing, incredible. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Join us again next week. Be here every Thursday,